We were packing garment bags into my SUV for a quiet drive to the studio. Coffee steaming, playlist low, my mind on hem lengths and lighting cues. Then my phone buzzed, and the ordinary morning ripped open. Borrowed your silver dress for tonight. Chill? It looks fake anyway, Leo. My kid brother, 25, charming chaos in sneakers. I stopped breathing. The silver dress wasn't a party piece. It was the nebula gown our showstopper hand-loomed with lab-grown micro-diamonds and meteorite thread. Insured at $1.2 million. On the runway tomorrow. I made a choice in one clean motion. I told my driver to turn the car around. I called security, and I promised myself something I'd never dared before if I discovered the truth. I suspected I would stop protecting Leo even if it broke the last small piece of our family. My name is Mira Tran. I'm 33 and the CEO of Aurora Atelier, a sustainable couture house in Los Angeles. I grew up the responsible one. Schedules on the fridge, honor roll pins in a shoebox. While Leo floated from dream to dream, I built a brand from a rented workroom and 3 secondhand machines. The nebula gown was my gamble and my crown. 4 months of work, fiber pulled like silver rain, a bodice that caught light and held it. We needed the press, we needed the investors. We needed it not to vanish in the hands of a boy who still thought consequences were suggestions. I sprinted back into my penthouse. The garment vault stood open, its biometric panel still glowing. The gown's case lay on my vanity, empty as a lie. A post-it curled at the edge. Didn't see your name on it. The ink had a smug tilt that made my teeth ache. Nadia, my operations lead and my anchor in chaos, arrived breathless. You okay? No, I said. I kept my voice level. Calm buys you time. Panic sells it for cheap. Lock the vault. Push the crisis protocol. Quietly. She didn't ask questions. That's why she's Nadia. In the conference room, my CFO, Sarah Patel, was already dialing our insurer. She's precise skeptical, the person who names the thing no one wants to say. Tell me there's a tracker on the dress, she said. There was, I answered, until last night. I took it home to check the drape under warm lighting. Sarah blinked. That was the validator look, the one that confirms the suspicion you hope is wrong. You breached protocol. I know. Then we keep records clean and move fast. I opened Find My. Leo never bothers with privacy settings. A pale blue dot pulsed near West Hollywood. Not a theater, not a studio, a members-only rooftop bar called The Halo, the place influencers go to film their lives in other people's light. Sarah leaned in. We call the police now, or we don't call them at all. Give me 20 minutes, I said. The words came out flat, final. If I can get the dress back without a circus, I will. If not, we go full protocol. That's not policy. It is today. On the way, Nadia sat beside me and passed me water without looking. You're shaking. I'm angry. You're scared. Both. She nodded. Remember your rules, breathe, verify, act. I watched palm trees flicker by like metronomes. I thought of Leo at 12, winning a school talent show with a magic trick and a grin. I thought of me at 12 ironing our mother's blouse the night before her interview. Because she had a double shift and Leo had a science fair. Funny how love turns into duty so slowly you don't feel the handcuffs click. Traffic stalled. A billboard on Sunset showed our campaign, Light Belongs to Everyone. The irony burned. I scrolled Leo's Instagram, stories as expected. A clip at the Halo entrance, a blonde in a chrome mini. The caption, Big Night with a Star. He'd tagged her, Nova Calder, a music producer's daughter. Her page was a museum of rooftop pools and private jets. The nebula gown would look like a costume to her until she learned what it could buy. Nadia's phone chimed. Internal leak, she said. Someone in the studio Slack just posted that the dress is missing. Kill the thread, DM the poster, screenshot everything. My chest went tight. Bad news moves like gasoline. One spark, and donors' clients, and 1,000 bored strangers would light it for fun. Sarah texted, insurer wants a police report within the hour. A minute later, board chair wants a call. Another investor from Tokyo on hold. He flew in for tomorrow. I typed back 3 words I will handle. We pulled up to the Halo's curb. The evening crowd already glittered in the sun like confetti. I spotted Leo instantly. He has a way of standing in any room like it's a stage he hasn't earned yet. The woman beside him, Nova, laughed and lifted a flute of champagne. Behind them, a flash of silver. The nebula gown unzipped and draped over a server's arm as if it were a napkin. Heat roared in my ears. Nadia touched my wrist. "Mira! Plan!" "Plan," I repeated, and the word steadied me. I took the back stairs, the ones I used when I used to deliver dresses myself, to avoid entrances where people measured you. The manager met me at the service door. He's the revealer, though I didn't know it yet. People like him always are the ones who tell the truth, because they need the night to keep moving. "I'm Mr. Vega," he said. "We're honored to have you, Miss Tran, though I hear there's a wardrobe change." "My property," I said. "I need it now." He spread his hands. "I only know what I saw. Your brother handed it to the stylist and said it was a brand loan." She removed a small black tag from the lining. "The tracker, snipped clean." I swallowed. "Where is it in our VIP dressing area?" "With Ms. Calder." He lowered his voice. "Your brother tipped everyone in hundreds to speed things up. He said you'd reimburse." "Of course he did. Spend now." Apologies later. That was Leo's first language. Sarah called. I put her on speaker. "We're out of 20 minutes, she said. "Police or no?" "Not yet," I said. "I'm 2 doors away. If this leaks before we file, the insurer will call it negligence. If we file and you retrieve the gown yourself, they'll call it interference, so they'll call it bad no matter what I said." "At least pick the bad that saves the company," Sarah replied. Nadia cut in softly. "And pick the choice that saves you." I found Leo outside the dressing area, basking in the glow of his own audacity. He saw me and grinned like a child at a carnival. "Mir, you made it! Wait till you see Nova in that thing. Your little eco dress is gonna trend." "It's not a little eco dress," I said. "Keep the voice low. Keep the blade sharp. It's collateral. It's payroll. It's the next 12 months of our lives." He rolled his eyes. "Relax. It's good PR. People love a behind-the-scenes moment. You lied to staff. You cut the tracker. You signed my name in cash." He flinched at that. Just a flicker. "I knew you'd cover it," he said. And there it was, the manipulator's creed dressed like trust. Nova swept out in the nebula gown a minute later. I hate that I noticed this, but she looked breathtaking. The dress held her like moonlight. She posed. Photographers surged like tide. I stepped forward. "Ms. Calder, I'm Mira Tran. That gown is not cleared for public use." She blinked. "Your brother said I'm the one who signs the releases." Her smile thinned. "Then sign one." "I won't." A beat of silence stretched, and in it I heard everything, the whir of cameras, the hiss of carbonation, the 1,000 small ways money believes it can bend reality. Mr. Vega slid between us, hands up. "Let's take this somewhere private." We moved toward a side lounge. Leo walked at my shoulder, whispering rage. "You're ruining this. You always do. You can't stand when the spotlight isn't on you." I stopped, turned. "I built the spotlight," I said. "You borrowed it without asking." He laughed, but it sounded brittle. "Family helps family. Family doesn't turn help into theft." His smile died. Big words from the girl who took the dress home against her own rules. The cut landed where he meant it to. He knows where my armor is thin. He grew up watching me hammer it. In the lounge, Nova's stylist fussed with the train. I reached for the zipper. Nova leaned back, chin tilted. "Touch me and I call security." "Please do," I said. "Let's put on record who owns what." The door opened. 2 uniformed officers stepped in. Not called by me, called by someone who wanted witnesses. Mr. Vega lifted a hand toward me. I did. Sarah's text lit my screen. I picked the bad that saves the company. One officer nodded to me. "Ms. Tran, we received a report that a high-value garment belonging to Aurora Atelier is being used without authorization." Leo's eyes went wide. He wasn't used to rooms where his charm didn't change gravity. Whoa, this is just a misunderstanding." Nova looked from me to the officers to the mirrors where the dress threw stars across the ceiling. She wasn't the villain, not really. Wrong room, wrong man, wrong moment. The innocent, though she would hate that word. I lowered my voice. "Ms. Calder, if this goes public, it hurts both of us. Take it off. Let me walk out with it, and we leave the rest to our lawyers. Her jaw worked. A long second passed. Then quietly, unzip me. As the zipper slid, I felt the tremor in my hands. Adrenaline is a story your body tells to keep you moving. The fabric whispered down. The weight of it returned to my arms, and my lungs opened just a little. Leo reached for the hanger. I'll carry it to the car. No, I said. You won't. The officer cleared his throat. We'll need statements. Of course they would. Nothing this clean ever stays clean. We stepped back into the hallway. Phones were up. The rumor had beaten us there. A blogger shouted, "Is it true your brother stole your dress?" Another Mira, "Are you pressing charges?" Leo looked at me, a dare and a plea tangled in his eyes. This was the cliff where duty and love always met, and tried to shove each other off. I tightened my grip on the Nebula's garment bag. I felt Nadia's hand on my shoulder, steady as a metronome. I heard Sarah's voice in my head, cool as math. I opened my mouth to answer, the line I drew. I answered the hallway noise, the only way that wouldn't burn the whole building down. Aurora protects its work and the artists who wear it. We followed procedure. No further comment. I kept my eyes on the cameras, not on Leo, because looking at him always pulled me back into the old contract, where I patched the holes, and he promised to be better next time. The officers split us up for statements. Mr. Vega repeated what he'd told me, crisp and neutral. Nova's stylist admitted she'd snipped a tag because it scratched then swallowed when the officer explained tampering with a tracker is evidence, not fashion feedback. Sarah arrived with a folder that made the room smell like paper and ink and consequence. She placed our loan policy serial photos of the Nebula's lining and the case number from our insurer on the table. We filed it as unauthorized use and attempted misappropriation, not theft, because the dress was back in my hands, and the word theft would stick to Leo forever in a way I wasn't ready to live with. The officer nodded. You may receive follow-up questions. Of course we would. When we stepped into the service stairwell, the music upstairs felt like it was happening in someone else's life. I told Leo what was going to happen in mine. You'll reimburse every tip you threw around, apologize in writing to staff, you lied to return your key fob, and stay out of Aurora Properties until I say otherwise. He barked a laugh that tried to be careless and almost made it. You're suspending me like I'm your intern. I'm protecting a company I built. With my help, he said, as if spontaneous parties and borrowed credit cards had counted as sweat equity. I let him talk until the words ran out. Then he dropped the kind of sentence that changes a hallway's temperature. You don't get it, Mir. People were expecting that dress to be seen on Nova tonight. People I can't say no to. Then start practicing, I said, because my no is bigger. He shrugged, but his eyes slid sideways. You think I walked into your place and just took it? Someone told me you brought it home. Someone with access. They said it was a win-win. The word someone landed like a coin hitting water. The circle rippled. I didn't show it. Who? I don't rat, he said suddenly. Noble where it cost him nothing. But maybe look closer at your perfect little kingdom. He handed over the fob, all dramatics. I'll get the money, he added, and the way he said it made my stomach knot. Money from where and with what strings? Outside, Nadia guided me to the car with the kind of touch that says shut up before you say something you can't swallow later. Breathe. Verify Act. She reminded me gently, and I wanted to hug her and also dismantle the world before anyone else touched it. On the drive to the studio, Callie, our PR lead, patched in. We drafted a post that said, everything and nothing, Aurora does not authorize unvetted loans. We love collaboration. We're excited for tomorrow. See you at the show. We scheduled it to go live with a clean, bright photo of the Nebula on a dress form, the zipper fully closed, the tag visible like a signature. It felt like putting a bandage on a cracked dam, but it held. For an hour. At the studio, the Slack leak had mutated. Screenshots of the Halo hallway were already in a fashion gossip account, cropped tight to my hands on the garment bag, and Leo's face in profile. The caption called it a sibling scuffle over sparkle, as if lawsuits were confetti. Sarah's jaw flexed. Insurer confirmed receipt. They flagged the tracker tampering and want chain of custody notes from last night to this morning. They also want to know why the dress left the vault. Because I wanted to check drape in warm light, I said. And hearing it out loud made it sound like I'd set a palace crown on a windowsill to see it in sunset. We'll document it, she said, not unkindly. Then added in the tone she reserves for shark-infested water. The board chair is waiting. Layla Cho sat in my office like a surgeon about to cut out the part that might kill you later. I don't need the play-by-play, she said. I need the plan that prevents this again, and the plan that turns this into an advantage. I told her both full audit of Access Emergency Security Review, key fobs reissued. Backstage tightened. And then, because offense is oxygen, I said we would add a surprise look to close the show and donate a portion of sales to a fund for young artisans who can't afford trackers, attorneys, or time. Layla nodded once. Make the surprise real. Make the fund real. And Mira. She waited until my eyes met hers. Stop protecting the one person who benefits most when you're exhausted. After she left, Nadia slid a tablet toward me. Access logs from your building. She'd already pulled what I would have asked for if my hands had stopped buzzing. Door opened at 2:07 a.m. using a temporary contractor code. That code was generated yesterday for HVAC maintenance. It was also used again at 2:11 a.m. in the service elevator. The dress was already at my place when the log hits, but the vault was locked. Unless whoever came up used your absence to photograph something else, she said. A shiver moved in a slow line down my neck. I opened a message from Nova I hadn't expected to get. I'm sorry, she wrote. He said it was cleared. If it helps, here are the texts. She attached screenshots. Leo's stream was all swagger and urgency. We have a silent backer. Viral unlocks funding. Mira is chill. I'll handle forms. Another number in the thread, unsaved on her phone, had told the stylist to capture lining codes if visible. Lining codes. No one asks for that unless they want to reverse engineer a supply chain or sell a counterfeit that looks ethical at a distance. I forwarded the images to Sarah and Nadia. Sarah called immediately. We had a wire request this morning, she said, from a Shell LLC with a name too close to ours, Aurora Labs Limited. They wanted a refundable deposit for exclusive Nebula licensing. It came with a fake term sheet and your forged signature. Did you approve it? No. I'm not an idiot. I could hear her typing fast and exact, but it means somebody is running a parallel pitch using our name and your work. And they assumed your brother could deliver access. That was the pattern I hadn't wanted to see. Small oddities over the last month, now lining up like stitches, a vendor we didn't use sending a thank you note. A courier who knew the name of our new textile before we'd announced it. A donor asking if our second Nebula sample would tour Asia. Second sample. We had only one, unless someone promised what didn't exist yet. Mr. Vega sent a file. Thought you should have this, he wrote. It was security footage from Halo's VIP hall, pulled from a camera angled at the ceiling mirror. In it, the stylist cut the tag, but that wasn't the useful part. The useful part was the man standing behind her, hands in pockets, not looking at the gown, but at the lining in the mirror. He lifted his phone, snapped a photo of the seam where we woven a micro QR for provenance. When I zoomed in, the reflection caught his face for a blink. Not a stranger. I'd seen him twice in our lobby the week before, trailing a consultant who'd come to optimize our operations and sneered at the cost of ethics. I didn't hire that consultant. Someone else had brought him in to chat, and I'd cut the meeting short because the smell of shortcuts clung to him. The man with the phone was his assistant. The circle tightened. Callie stuck her head in. We're trending for the wrong reason, she said, but the comments on the fund idea are fire. If we announce tonight with a clear call to action and a teaser of the surprise look, we can bend the story. I nodded. Draft it. Keep it clean. No passive voice, no apology. Then I texted Leo return every cent. If anyone contacts you about Aurora Labs or asks for materials, forward it to me and go silent. 3 dots pulsed, disappeared, returned. You don't get to order me around. Another bubble. They won't like that. I stared at the screen until the words lost shape, then turned to Nadia. Change the backstage plan. No more borrowed staff, no new hands. 2 teams, only yours and mine. Reroute all garment bags. New seals. We scan everything in and out. If anyone complains, they can watch from home. She was already moving voice calm but ironed flat. Sarah walked back in with a printout. I think the Shell LLC traces to a co-working suite in Beverly Grove. Leaseholder is a management company that links back to a consultant named Arden Vale. The name rang like a wrong note. Not because I knew him well, but because he'd tried to know us too well. I remembered his face when I declined his pitch, polite on top, hungry underneath. Arden wanted in, Sarah said, reading my expression. If he can't get in, he builds a door next to yours and tells people it's the same room. I looked at the nebula on its stand, calm as a moon in daylight. I loved it, but it didn't love me back. It was fabric and intent, and the cost of the last 4 months. The people in the shadows didn't want the dress. Not really. They wanted the map inside it. The supply chain we fought to clean. The proof that ethics could be beautiful and profitable. Leo was a lever they could pull with cash and praise. The fault was mine for leaving a gap. I picked up my phone and recorded a voice memo for the team to post tomorrow. We close with something you haven't seen. It will honor the hands that make our work real. We'll be auctioning the Nebula gown for the fund. Light belongs to everyone, but so does accountability. When I hit stop, the decision settled in my bones, like a truth I should have known all along. If people wanted to hijack my story, I would change the ending, while the way, we're still memorizing the old script. I packed the nebula back into its case and locked it with a new seal. Night leaned against the studio windows. Somewhere across the city, Leo was probably talking too fast to someone who smiled too slowly. Somewhere nearby, a consultant was printing out my lining code like a prize. I set my alarm for 3 because anxiety loves the hours when the world is quiet. Before I left, I sent one more message, this time to myself, scheduled for 7 a.m. Just in case I woke up, tempted to be soft again, press charges if he crosses the line again. Then I looked at Nadia. Tomorrow, double the guards. She nodded. And you, I'm done being generous with people who spend my kindness like it's theirs. The plan wasn't perfect, but it was motion, and motion for now was mercy. The map inside the dress. My own 7 a.m. message hit like a reminder from a stricter version of me. Press charges if he crosses the line again. Coffee. Checklists. The studio woke up in layers of sound steamers. Hissed zippers, whispered wheels rattled under racks. I gathered the core team in the cutting room and kept it short. 2 crews, 1 chain of custody, no outside hands. Nadia took access badges and reissued them. Sarah laid out a flow that would make an auditor smile. Callie rehearsed the fund announcement like a promise we could actually keep. The dress stood on its form, calm and silver, and I caught myself thinking the quiet look of it was a trick. Beautiful things make you think they can't hurt you. We started with the HVAC code. Nadia traced the temp credential to a work order request sent to our building manager from an email that looked almost right. The domain had a single missing letter. A glance, and anyone would have waved it through. She pulled the security footage from my lobby. At 2:07 a.m., a man in a contractor vest exited the elevator with a poster tube and a tablet. At 2:11 a.m., the service lift lights blinked. No alarm, no fuss. In the frame, the man turned his head toward the camera for a breath. I knew that jawline now. Arden's assistant, the one who took the mirror photo. He was not after the dress. He was after our paper. Pattern cards, sourcing notes, the tiny map you only see if you spend 100 hours inside a fabric. Sarah cross-checked bank pings. Our provenance QR was designed to register queries during shows, but any scan anywhere leaves a fingerprint. Someone hit it 3 times at 3 a.m. from a co-working network in Beverly Grove. The Shell LLC sat in that building. The timing locked like teeth. We bait them, Sarah said, and the way she said it made me grateful she was on my side. We seed a false marker in the nebula lining and a one-off term sheet with a unique typo. If either shows up, we know exactly who touched it. Callie slid in with a tablet. Comments were piling under our teaser. People loved the fund. A buyer in Paris offered to open the auction at a number that would make payroll exhale. Good. Oxygen. Then the innocent walked in, clutching a bakery box like it was a shield. Ray was 19, an intern who could match thread by touch. She cleared her throat. I think I messed up, she said, voice small and brave. We stepped into the dye room, quiet and warm. She showed me a DM from an account called Aurora Labs HR. It offered her a stipend for process documentation to help interns learn, asked for after-hours snaps of label positions and seam allowances, and then asked for a shot of the long silver dress's lining codes for a training sheet. Ray had sent them photos 2 nights ago before she understood what she was being pulled into. When she realized, she blocked the account. They replied from a second handle with a threat dressed as concern, keep helping, and your stipend doubles. Stop and we report your time theft. I listened until she ran out of breath. Then I did the only thing that made sense. I told her the truth. You were targeted because you're good and eager. That's how they build doors. You are not the door. She cried once quick, then squared her shoulders. There's more, she said. The same person said a courier would meet me by the loading dock today at noon for a reshoot. I didn't reply, but if they show, we'll be waiting, I said. And it steadied both of us. Mr. Vega called from the Halo with a gift disguised as routine. He had the name Arden used to register a private table last week and the last 4 digits of a corporate card. The management company matched Sarah's printout. The circle tightened again. Nadia drafted a sting with the ease of someone who has learned to lace grace with steel. We prepared a decoy garment bag with a flawless outer shell and a lining woven with a different micro QR that pointed to a private landing page. Callie stood up in 20 minutes. On that page sat a single word with our unique typo. If anyone scanned it, the ping would carry IP timestamp and intent all in one clean packet. We looped in our counsel and the precinct officer from last night. No heroics, I told myself. No cinematic arrests, just proof. Proof is quiet and expensive, and it holds in rooms where charm fails. While we built the trap, Leo texted again. I can fix it if you let me talk to them. The sentence made me cold. Letting him in was the fastest way to lose the thread. I called instead of typing. He answered on the second ring, voice pitched for lightness and failing. Mir, they're not bad guys. They're just impatient. They think you're slow. We are slow, I said on purpose. And they used you. He went silent. I pushed while the line held. You can come in at noon and sit with me and tell the officer everything you know, or you can stay out there and keep being useful to men who will write your name into the blame clause and leave mine in the headline. They'll freeze me out, he whispered. They'll do worse if you keep pretending this is friendship, I said. Pick a side. He hung up without choosing. The board group chat pinged. Layla kept it calm. Proceed, document, make the fund real. I wrote the fund charter while Nadia finalized badge lists. Action made fear smaller. In the sample room, I checked the decoy's hang, slid my fingers along the waist seam, and felt the tiny raised dot of the alternate QR press, back like a heartbeat. Good. Let them think they had the map, while the real road stayed inside my head, and in 6 locked cabinets across 3 cities. A junior cutter named Min came by with corrected darts. He paused at the door before leaving. There's a guy by the alley, he said. Same shoes as the contractor last night. Shiny. Too shiny for actual work. I looked through the narrow window and saw a man with a clipboard pretend to read a bill of lading while he watched our loading bay with a patience that made my skin itch. Noon crept over the block like heat. We staged the dock with the choreography of a small war. One officer in a delivery vest, another in the driver's seat of an unmarked van. Nadia logged every move. Ray stood beside me, small but steady, a witness brave enough to look. The courier showed right on time. He wore a hat with a shipping company logo I didn't recognize and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Pick up for training package, he said, sticking to the script. I lifted the decoy bag. Sign? I said, holding out a clipboard with a release Callie had crafted to sound exactly like the ones in Ray's DM. He scribbled a fake name. He reached for the handles. The officer in the vest waited half a beat, then 3 plainclothes stepped in and asked for ID. The courier tried to pivot into friendly confusion. Nadia took a photo of the order number on his phone and sent it to Sarah in a blink. It matched the Shell LLC's invoice string. Clean lines, clean proof. The man's smile failed. He ran. The officer in the driver's seat did not. A car door slammed. Footfalls hit gravel. It was not cinematic. It was loud and graceless, and it worked. 10 minutes later, I sat across from the courier in our back office while the officer read him rights. He looked like a man who expected rich people to keep him safe, as long as he did the messy parts. He kept saying he was small. He kept saying he didn't know Arden's last name. He kept saying he thought it was real HR. Then he asked for a lawyer, as if that word would turn the room back into a place where he was only delivering flowers. Proof traveled fast. Sarah pinged. The decoy QR had been scanned from a tablet at the Beverly Grove space 5 minutes after the courier left our dock with nothing in his hands. They thought they had it. The unique typo appeared on a mirror site that tried to pass as our investor portal. Callie screenshotted everything like a collector of rare stamps. We had the shape. We still needed the hand. Arden stayed ghosted. He didn't call. He didn't show. Men like him let other people hit the tripwires. That was fine. The quiet part of me welcomed his silence. Quiet men make bigger mistakes because they believe the room is empty until it isn't. I stepped back onto the floor with Ray, and the studio air felt different. Not safe, but clearer. Threads hummed under the machines. Steam rose. The nebula watched me from its form-patient, luminous a thing built by 100 hands that deserved better than to be turned into a shortcut. I thought of Leo's voice on the phone thin around the edges, and I thought of Arden's assistant raising his phone to a mirror, as if the simple act of looking hard meant he deserved what he saw. At 2, the police took the courier away. At 3, Layla approved the fund charter. At 4, I called Mr. Vega and thanked him for the mirror. He laughed softly and said he liked shows that start with chaos and end with order. At 5, our rehearsal began. At 5:05, the main breaker clicked, and the house dropped into a brief dark that smelled like hot dust. The lights snapped back a beat later, someone testing the edges, or just an old building sighing. Either way, I felt the gravel under my shoes, even though we were inside that alert crunch the body remembers when it needs to move. We had our sting and our proof. Now came the part no plan can smooth, stepping into a room full of eyes and telling your story faster than your enemies can sell a lie. The moment the room tilted. The breaker's hiccup stayed with me into showday like a pebble in a shoe you can't stop feeling. Morning broke clean. We stacked plans into place. 2 crews, 1 chain of custody. New seals logged twice. Callie pushed the fund live at 9 with a clear ask and a number that meant something. Donations flowed fast and quiet, not splashy, just steady. It felt like air returning to a room. The nebula sat sealed in the glass case like a moon behind a cloud. Our closer, but also our pledge. We had one more surprise look draped in unmarked muslin, hidden even from some models. Only Nadia and I had the code. Sarah checked scanners and pings. The decoy QR did its work. Overnight, 2 more hits landed from the co-working suite, and a fresh one pinged at 10 from a mobile hotspot near our venue. That told us the enemy had moved. They weren't waiting for the after-party. They wanted the map before the applause. Good. That kept them under our lights. By noon, fittings ran like a river. Zippers and pins and that hum you get when jaws are set and hands know what they're doing. I let myself watch 5 seconds of runway rehearsal from the wings. The sound swallowed me. Bass rolled under the floor. The stage smelled like hot metal and fresh paint. Light rigs buzzed. Perfume and steam curled together bright and human. Then Leo appeared at the backstage check. He looked smaller in daylight, like some of his edges had rubbed off. He held up his hands as if we were the ones ready to fight. I picked a side, he said, voice low. Yours. He set a cheap phone on my palm and wouldn't meet my eyes. They gave me this. It's how they told me when and where. There's a schedule for tonight. There's a handoff at intermission. They called it Sample 2. There is no Sample 2, I said. Exactly, he answered, breath shaky. They think you'll bring it if they spook you enough. They booked 2 seats through a dummy concierge. Row C, dead center, right aisle. They want the bag under that chair. A dresser will roll a cart past me at Q7. I was supposed to swap. Nadia stepped in all calm. Who's the dresser? He gave one name, Leo said. Mason. Big watch. Polished boots not scuffed. He smells like cologne that wants to be a lawsuit. That was Arden's assistant. The mirror photo flashed in my head. Pattern recognition can taste like metal. I texted the officer from yesterday and handed her the line. She replied with 2 words, "We're here." Sarah checked the seating chart and put 2 plainclothes 2 rows back. Layla arrived, shook my hand, and asked no questions. She looked at Leo like he was a person she would spend 0 minutes thinking about later. It landed. He flinched and stood straighter, as if shame could turn into muscle if you held it long enough. Curtain time crawled and sprinted the way it always does. Doors opened. People with money and eyes filed in, humming with hunger and judgment. Phones went up. A writer I respect stood in the 3rd row with a notebook instead of a camera. It settled me. Words still matter when pictures run wild. Q1 hit. The first model took the light, and every doubt in my head went quiet. Fabric moved like it wanted to. Hands had done this. Not money, not threats. Hands. I stayed at the wing with Nadia counting cues. 3, 4, 7 was the pass that would carry the cart. We checked every cart twice. Wheels straight, seals clean. Then I smelled it. Not smoke, not dust, solvent. The sharp bite of fabric glue that doesn't belong near couture. I followed it to a utility corridor that runs behind the quick change nests. The floor there always feels like late-night grit under tape lost pins, a strip of gaffer that never quite dies. Mason rounded the far bend, pushing a cart, with a calm too smooth for a backstage this loud. He looked up, met my eyes, and smiled like we were 2 people who could split a secret and call it business. "Wrong hallway," I said. He glanced at the laminated pass on my lanyard, at Nadia behind me, at the 2 uniformed fire inspectors checking extinguishers who were not fire inspectors. He pivoted like a dancer to take the long way, and that's when I saw the lining. It was folded under a tray, the silver pattern aimed inward, so anyone glancing would catch only the outer cloth. A tiny fray at the seam showed a micro QR that was almost ours. Almost. The counterfeiters had learned fast. Good enough to fool a room, not good enough to fool a maker. "Where'd you get that?" I asked, keeping my voice flat. Mason shrugged. "Pull list says it's an alteration." "Fix a snag." He reached for it with a gloved hand like he changed linings every day. Nadia spoke without raising her tone. "Set the cart brake." He clicked the brake to make a point of being harmless. I lifted the corner of the lining and felt the wrong weave. Ours hums under the nail. This felt dead. I caught a flash of a sticker on the underside of the tray. Aurora Labs. The decal alignment was off by a hair. My stomach cooled. "Walk with us," I said. He smiled again. "On whose authority mine?" I said, and the officer's voice came from behind him to make it official. He kept the smile because some men only know 3 faces, and this was one. He went quietly, but his eyes gave away the math. He'd expected chaos, not shape. That's the thing about order. It doesn't look dramatic until it closes. In a small office near stage left, the officer asked him to empty his pockets. He set down tape, a seam ripper, a phone that wasn't the one in his hand, and a lanyard with a clip that carried a tiny blade where a thumb rests. The kind tailors use to cut thread, the kind thieves use to cut anything thin. He tried to explain it as habit. The lining on the cart sat on the table like evidence already convinced. Sarah sent the ping log as it updated. The mirrored investor site came online for 3 minutes at call time and flashed our unique typo. Then it went dark. The scan ID matched Mason's spare phone. We had tie A to B and B to C. Proof enough to make a judge stay awake. "Where's Arden?" I asked. The officer asked too official voice now. Mason said he didn't know an Arden. He said he thought this was brand sanctioned. He said the words men say when they want the board to think they are the floor. I let him talk. Some holes dig themselves. Q7 hit in my left ear monitor. Nadia and I stepped back into the rush. The cart he'd meant to wheel sat harmless under a plain tarp. We swapped it with a clean one and reran the pass. The models didn't miss a beat. The audience didn't see the knot in my spine. Callie touched my elbow. "Press is sniffing. Stay with the plan," she said, eyes bright. I nodded. The show tightened like a fist closing. Leo hovered by the quick change pail and trying to look useful. He handed water, picked up pins, said nothing. That was the gift I needed from him, quiet. Q11 brought us near the close. I walked to the locked case and looked at the nebula. It reflected me back small and doubled in the glass. The ache that had lived behind my ribs all week eased. We would make it on stage with the truth intact. But the room had one more tilt in it. A venue manager jogged up with a face like someone had dropped a truth into his ear. "There's a man in a suit at the stage door insisting he's your licensing partner," he said. "He has papers. He's telling my staff he can seize the disputed asset under a civil claim." He had a name tag already printed by his own hand, Arden Vale in fonts that tried too hard. He chose a corner with good light, like he meant to be photographed. He carried a leather folder, as if the folder could be a weapon. I walked out with Layla, 2 officers, and a calm I borrowed from older women who've lived through larger storms. Arden greeted us as if we were late to our own rescue. "I'm so relieved to finally connect," he said, voice shaped of trust. "My client is prepared to extend generous terms. To avoid public embarrassment, we can execute a consent order now in situ." He slipped out a printed agreement with my name, my signature, and our logo. The pen stroke imitated my impatience. It would fool anyone who reads fast. He held it up like a lantern for the room. Layla didn't blink. "You forged her name," she said, "and you planned to steal a lining you thought would corroborate this." He smiled in pity. "Words like forged are inflammatory. Lawyers prefer terms like ratified by conduct. You've already partnered with us. It's just not official yet." He pivoted to me. "We know you're overextended. We know where the money sits and where it doesn't. Let us carry the weight. You keep the art. We'll clean the mess." He had my ledger close enough to be insulting and wrong enough to be dangerous. Men like Arden love to present rescue as a luxury you buy with your name. I didn't give him my name. I gave him the thing he didn't think I'd have in a room like this: quiet proof. Sarah forwarded the decoy QR logs to the officer. Callie pulled up the mirror site with the unique typo. Nadia photographed Arden's folder tab, where a label peeled back to show Aurora Labs under Arden Vale Partners, sloppy and arrogant. The officer compared signatures dates and the scan that pinged 2 minutes ago from a tablet near the stage door. Arden's tablet. He tried to turn generous again. "There's no need to escalate," he said, palms open. "A public scene won't help either of us." I looked past him at the sliver of sky over the loading dock. It was still blue. It would still be blue if the show collapsed. The city didn't care about my dress. That certainty steadied me more than any pep talk. "There is a need," I said. "We'll do this by the book. You can watch the finale from the sidewalk." He flicked one more look at Leo, a flash of contempt dressed as concern. "Family is hard," he said softly. Aimed at me like a poison whispered instead of poured. "I hope you have the stomach for what comes after you make yourself the hero." I let the insult sail past. Heroes tell stories about themselves. I was busy writing orders. The officers escorted him out while he kept his posture open like he expected credits to roll. They didn't. Back inside Q12 hit. The runway washed with a cool blue that matched the sky I'd just used to check my fear. I opened the case. I felt the garment's weight settle into my hands the way a decision settles into bone. The nebula shimmered even in the dark of backstage. I zipped it closed on our closer, a woman who had sewn through 3 recessions and still laughed like a bell. "Walk like you own justice," I whispered. She grinned and stepped into light. I followed to the edge and watched the room stand. Cheekbones lifted, pens paused, phones rose like a wave. The gown caught everything and gave it back. At the end of the pass, I stepped onto the stage with a mic. No drama in my pocket, just the fun, the work, and a promise. My voice didn't shake. "This piece will be auctioned tonight," I said. "Proceeds go to the hands that hold up every name you see in lights. We believe in beauty you can trace. We believe light belongs to everyone, and so does accountability." The applause took a breath, then hit. I saw faces soften. I saw jaws unclench. I saw one empty chair in row C aisle. The other held a man with a cheap suit and a phone no longer useful. He looked up and finally understood that doors close when you don't respect the room. The finale track swelled. Confetti cannons hissed. The sky outside our dock stayed blue. Inside, we finished the story our way. Then my phone vibrated once in my pocket with a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was a single photo. Leo taken from a distance, talking to a man in a gray cap near a dark sedan. The caption read, "Last chance. Last chance." The photo hit like a shove. Leo by a dark sedan. A man in a gray cap angled to hide his face. The caption said, "Last chance." No address, no timestamp, but there was a reflection on the sedan door, a slice of a wall painted with a burning crown and 3 arrows. I'd seen that mural from the Halo's back alley last winter when I picked up fabric from a stylist who forgot her invoice. Mr. Vega would know the block in his sleep. I forwarded the image and called him. He didn't waste a word. "That's Kincaid and 4th, he said. Old print shop, now a half-legal storage space. 2 exits. 1 blind corner where people think cameras can't see them." I sent the pin to Nadia and the officer. We split duties. Callie ran the auction like a conductor, calm voice, clear rules, video uplink solid. Sarah fed the fund number to the screen. Layla kept the board quiet and useful. I took a driver 2 plainclothes and the decoy bag. I wasn't bringing the nebula into the street again. I did bring the micro recorder Ray had found in a prop drawer, and the small, ugly courage you borrow when you know a choice will hurt no matter what you pick. Traffic moved like honey. The city exhaled after the show, unaware of the second story running under the main one. Nadia stayed behind to lock down the venue and guard the cases with a posture that warns predators they've already missed dinner. The officer sat up front, eyes on Mirror's voice steady. "No rash moves. We document. If he's in danger, we intervene. If he's bargaining, we let him talk long enough to hang himself with his own string." I nodded. The recorder hummed in my palm like a trapped fly. We turned onto Kincaid. The mural glowed even in bad light. Graycap leaned on the sedan, as if he owned the curb. Leo stood close, spine bent into a shape I recognized from childhood, when our mother grounded him, and he thought a grin could erase consequences. He saw me first. Relief broke across his face, fast and messy. Then he tried to look like he hadn't called for help without calling for help. Graycap watched the car, not me. He had the patience of a man paid by the hour and the job. He opened the sedan's trunk, a hand's width, and let the metal rest against the lock like a threat. "Bag," he said. 1 word. No hello. The officer stayed behind the door and let me walk 5 steps forward. I held the decoy and kept my voice flat. "Show me terms." Graycap smirked. "Terms are simple. He owes. You pay. Everyone sleeps." He jerked his chin at Leo. "Your boy ran a tab with men who prefer paper to promises." Leo bristled, then wilted. "I told them you'd make it right," he said, and the part of me that still hoped he'd learn flinched. Graycap tapped the trunk. "We don't like crowds. Open it or walk." He didn't expect the 2 plainclothes behind me or the 3rd officer angling in from the blind corner Mr. Vega warned me about. Arden's people were brave until badges appeared. Then courage turned into exit plans. I lifted the bag slow and visible. "We don't transact without receipts," I said. "You want payment, you sign. You want to return property, you sign. No paper, no play." He laughed once. "You talk like the room is yours," he said, reaching for the handles. The officer stepped forward. "Hands where I can see them," she said. Graycap froze weight on the wrong foot. "You can always tell who has practice with uniforms." He didn't. He cut his eyes toward the shop door. I saw it before he moved. A shadow passed behind the glass, slim and quick. Arden. He thought his Catman could buy him time. He miscounted. The officer's partner blocked the door with a shoulder and a badge. I hit record and let my anger cool to a blade. "Where's Arden Vale?" I asked. Graycap rolled his neck and tried for board. "Who?" The officer read him the same right she read the courier. It took 30 seconds for bravado to drain. Inside, he muttered, "Office back right near the press. He said to stall and call if you brought police." The door opened with a sour creak. The shop still smelled faintly of ink and oil, layered now with the chemical tang I'd caught backstage. We stepped through in a small column. Leo hovered a step behind me, as if proximity could replace responsibility. Work tables and old machines lined the walls like sleeping animals. A tripod sat pointed at a light box. On the box, a strip of silver lining, under a camera with macro lenses. Someone had been photographing thread counts and microweaves like a thief taking a trophy. In the back office, Arden sat with his jacket off and his tie loosened, sleeves rolled like a man who believes he's about to lift your problem and brand it as his solution. He had a banker's smile on, calm and bright. He kept his hands where we could see them, then reached for the folder he'd used at the stage door. The officer stopped him with a glance. He leaned back with a sigh, shifted to magnanimous mode, and started his pitch, as if the past day hadn't happened. "Let me save you from your own posture," he said. "You get to be the visionary while I amortize the ethics. Your margins improve. Your risks go away. The audience never knows the difference." He gestured with his chin at the light box like he was pointing to a spreadsheet. "These are just numbers. Numbers want homes." I let him talk until his confidence curved into arrogance. Then I held up the decoy bag. "This carries a marker only a thief would know to scan," I said. "Your man scanned it. Your mirror sight flashed a typo only we knew. You tried to force a consent order with a signature you practiced until it looked like impatience. You groomed a 19-year-old with a fake HR handle, and you used my brother like a door." His eyes flicked to Leo. "Not pity. Calculation. Your brother called me," he said softly. "He wanted to belong to something bigger than your narrow shop." The line tried to land like insight. It landed like a bruise. The officer read out the charges she could read in that room and had him place his hands where the cuffs would go. He didn't fight. He tried one more tone. "You can bury me for a month," he said, eyes on me, voice pleasant. "But someone will still want what you built. Someone hungrier, someone less polite. This is bigger than a show." "It always was," I said. "That's why we built it with light you can trace." He smiled small and private, like a man watching a ship he doesn't think will make it through winter. Then he walked quiet between officers past Leo, who flinched at every step, as if each shoe on concrete was a cost he'd have to pay later. We cleared the shop, while CSU tagged the camera and the QR shots. The officer took my recorder and logged it. She turned to me with a question that didn't fit in a line item. "Do you want to add a complaint against your brother?" The room tightened on the hinge of that sentence. Leo stared at his shoes. He didn't ask for mercy. He didn't offer truth. He looked 15 and 40, at the same time the way some men do, when their choices finally demand more than charm. My 7 a.m. message rang in my head, like a bell I couldn't unring. Press charges if he crosses the line again. He had, repeatedly. But something else mattered too. Proof had a job. Family had a different one. I didn't owe him protection. I did owe the people whose names were never on a poster the safety of a boundary you can't talk your way through. I took a breath and made it simple. "I want his statement on record," I said. "He was used and he facilitated. He'll repay every dollar. He'll accept a no-contact order with my company. He'll complete whatever diversion program you can offer first offenders. If he violates any of that, I press full charges. If you can't do that, we move now." The officer studied my face for the wobble that sometimes betrays a weak plan. There wasn't one, not tonight. She nodded. "We can start with that," she said. "But you need to sign something today. Decide which path you'll walk if he blinks wrong." I looked at Leo. "This is not a deal," I said. "It's a floor. You fall through it once and there's nothing under you." He swallowed hard and said the first honest sentence I'd heard from him in days. "I will do what you said." The officers split us for statements. I told mine clean. Dates, times, names, smells what a counterfeit weave feels like under a fingernail. Leo told his with long pauses and a voice that dropped when he said the part where he'd promised a thing that didn't exist. Arden sat in another room and called a lawyer whose card probably smelled like cedar and old money. Outside, the auction ticked. Callie texted updates like a heartbeat. Bids climbed. The fund crossed the number Sarah had hoped for and then stepped over it as if hope had been shy. People sent notes that made my throat tight seamstresses in Ohio. A small factory manager in Dhaka. A student in Manila who wanted to learn to cut on grain and asked if we took apprentices. The world was larger than Arden's folder. It was also more fragile than he understood. We left the shop when the paperwork ended. The night pressed warm and close. The mural with the crown looked less like a threat and more like a warning someone painted for people who thought shortcuts were maps. Leo walked beside me to the curb where our driver waited. He kept his hands in his pockets like a boy who didn't trust them to choose right unless he sat on them. "I know sorry isn't a bridge," he said. "It's a word. I'll build the bridge. I didn't promise forgiveness. I did promise accountability. One step," I said. "Every day. No noise." He nodded, eyes wet and angry at the same time. The officer asked me once more quietly, as if turning down the volume made the choice easier. "Do you want to file tonight or hold until morning?" I thought of my message to myself. I thought of Ray in the dye room, brave and honest. I thought of the hands that lifted our closer's train into the light. I thought of Arden's smile and how it looked like a man ordering lunch. I held the pen. I looked at Leo. He didn't speak. He didn't run. He waited. And I set the pen down on the line where a signature would turn family into a case number, took one last breath, as the city hummed and decided how this story would end tomorrow. New Equilibrium Morning made the choice simple. I did not sign the charge sheet that would turn Leo into a headline. I filed the conditional complaint instead, the one with teeth that bite the second he slides. The officer stamped it, eyes steady. Boundaries, not mercy. Then I went to work. We closed the auction at noon with a burst that felt like air after a held breath. A museum in Denver won with a bid that came with a promise to tour the nebula through schools and community centers. Proceeds landed in the fund account before lunch. Sarah read out the confirmation like a weather report. Sunny with cash. Callie posted the thank you note we wrote together at dawn. Clear words, no spin. We named the hands that built the dress and the cities that taught them. Comments stacked like small lights. Nadia tightened access again, not out of fear, out of respect. New fobs, new seals, new habit, 2 people to open any case, 1 to sign, 1 to watch. Ray became our first fellow. She asked for a sewing kit with her name etched on the tin and a stipend she could send her mother. We gave her both and a key to the library. She started an internal class on labels and lies, a plain guide for interns who don't yet know how predators sound when they act helpful. It was her idea to add a hotline number to every badge. Quiet tools, quiet power. Arden saw a judge 2 days later, gray suit, steady voice, polite. He pled not guilty and hired a lawyer who said the words men like that say when they want time. The DA filed counts for attempted fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and a grab bag of computer crimes that read like a shopping list for lazy thieves. Mason flipped first. The courier followed. Their statements lined up too neatly to be rehearsed, which made them credible. The Mirror site went dark under a court order. The co-working lease ended the way bad weather ends a picnic. Not dramatic. Final. Layla negotiated a civil settlement that returned costs and funded 3 more fellowships. It wasn't victory. It was the part where you stop bleeding and start healing. Leo started his program the next week. Diversion is a plain word for an ugly mirror. Classes, restitution, weekly check-ins with a counselor who doesn't care about charm. He swept floors at a shelter 3 nights a week because someone decided his hands needed to learn a job that ends with something clean. He sent me the receipts from the tips he repaid. He wrote apologies that sounded like a person trying instead of a man performing. He signed the no-contact order with Aurora without asking for edits. He did not set foot in my building. He texted once on Sunday nights to confirm he was still doing the work. No heart emojis, no please forgive me. Just proof. It helped. It didn't fix. That's fine. Some bridges are built an inch at a time. The show's afterglow lasted longer than I expected. Journalists wrote about provenance instead of scandal. One column called the fund a manual for how to answer theft with infrastructure. Another asked if ethics could scale without turning into marketing. I liked that one best because it kept the question open. We launched a capsule we had sketched in the worst hour of the crisis and refined when the lights came back. Simple cuts, honest seams. A tiny stitch inside each hem where a maker signed with a number that maps to a page of their choosing. A poem. A recipe. A joke. Proof, but human. Orders came slow at first, then steady. The board exhaled without gloating. Layla smiled once small and private and told me to block a vacation in my calendar like it was a vendor meeting. I said I would. I meant it. Mr. Vega sent me a framed still from the halo mirror. You could see a camera, a phone, a hand, and above it, the ceiling grid that made the trick work. He wrote on the back, "The room tells on the thief if you angle the light right." It hung in my office by the door where I grabbed my coat. I looked at it every night before I left and asked myself if I'd angled the day correctly. We found the breaker problem. Age, not sabotage. The electrician replaced the panel with a box that hummed like a cat. I thanked it anyway. My body still remembered the crunch of gravel in a place with no gravel, and maybe that's good. Alertness without panic. I kept the 7 a.m. message on my phone and added a second one: protect the work, not the myth. It's easy to defend the story you tell yourself about your family. It's harder to defend the people who show up every day and thread light into fabric with paychecks that decide if their children eat well this month. I chose them. I will keep choosing them. 2 months later, I met Nova for coffee on a bench where the jacaranda drops purple like confetti. She apologized again without making it a scene. She offered to donate the fee for a private set to the fund and asked if we would train her stylist on our loan rules. I said yes to both. She looked at the city and said she liked the idea that beauty could be tracked the way truth is tracked in a good newsroom. That made me laugh. She laughed too. It felt like a knot in the story loosening instead of snapping. Sarah built a dashboard that showed me pings in real time. Not names, not faces, just maps and timestamps. They looked like constellations. Beverly Grove went quiet. Factories we partner with in Ho Chi Minh, Naples, and Oaxaca glowed on show days like lighthouses. I kept that screen up on a spare monitor. When dots lit, I breathed easier. It meant people were looking because we asked them to. One night, Leo knocked on my apartment door instead of texting. He held a cheap cake with too much frosting and hands that didn't shake. He said he'd finished his program. He had a job at the museum that bought the Nebula entry-level visitor services. He wanted to tell people where the light came from and where it was going next. He didn't ask for a badge. He didn't ask for work. He said he liked scanning tickets because it made him feel like he was part of the room without taking anything from it. I made tea. We ate cake that stained our tongues blue. We talked about quiet things. He left before midnight, like a person who knows that leaving on time is a kind of respect. He texted me a photo from the museum lobby the next morning. A child stood under the Nebula head, tipped hand out, as if she could catch a beam. The caption said, "I told her who sewed the bodice." The fund paid its first stipends that quarter. Ray ran the selection panel with 2 seamstresses and a retired cutter from Atlanta, who carried a thimble like a talisman. They picked 3 fellows. One makes shirts with seams that hide small poems. One repairs heirloom dresses in a town where fast fashion ate the local tailor shops. One builds a loom out of bicycle parts for a classroom that can't afford new tools. We posted their work with the same care we use for our own. The comments were kinder than the internet usually is. I saved one. It said I can see the hands. Arden's case crawled as cases do, but the judge set conditions that kept him away from my orbit. He sent me one letter through counsel that tried to be cordial and failed. I didn't reply. I didn't frame it. I kept it in a file labeled Lessons. On the last page, I taped a sticky note that says in my handwriting, "Hunger is not vision." I still think about the night at Kincaid and 4th. I think about the trunk lifted just enough to mean trouble. I think about the smell of solvent by the quick change nest. I think about the way Leo's voice thinned when he finally told the truth. Those memories do not bruise me now. They remind me that I can hold a line without turning stone. On the 1-year mark, we brought the Nebula home for a night before it left for the next city. We set it in the studio and turned off the house lights. The gown held the moon through the window and looked like a promise I could keep. I invited the team to sit on the floor and tell me what they wanted the next year to feel like. Nadia asked for more rest and more guardrails. Sarah asked for fewer fires and better sprinklers. Callie asked for a story we didn't have to defend. Ray asked to learn corsetry. I asked for steady hands and a softer voice in my head when I make a mistake. We locked the case at midnight and went home. The city was loud. The sky was honest. I slept. If you're still with me, you already know the lesson I had to learn the hard way. Love without boundaries turns into cover for harm, and work without proof turns into a story someone else can sell. I turned the car around at the start. I turned my life around in the middle. Now I keep it pointed where the light is not, because the world is kind, but because we can be. Tell me this in the comments, and be honest. Where would you have drawn the line, and what would you have done with your own brother at the curb when the trunk lifted that inch?